Welcome, everyone. Welcome to those who are on Zoom. Welcome to all of you on Facebook and YouTube. Welcome. We're happy to have you. This is another day where on Sunday, we are having a session on the essential teachings of the religion of God, and we have Peter Terry joining us. The topic today, the essential teachings of the religion of God, are referred to in a number of passages of the Baha'i writings and utterances, many of which will be cited in this document, which you can also see here, the reference document I've highlighted on this page. You can come here to clearwaterbaha'is.org and check it out. Separate studies are devoted to, first, the two kinds of teachings of the religion of God, and second, the secondary teachings of that religion. Third, the human teachings that have been added to, and in many cases have eclipsed the original divine teachings of that religion. Fourth, the various historical scriptural references to the two kinds of teachings of that religion. Fifth, the correlation of the station of unity of the manifestation and the covenant of God with the essential teachings of religion. And last, the comparison of divine philosophy with essential teachings. So Peter will, in addition to these topics, he'll talk and allude to and perhaps present the other document that identifies some of these secondary teachings and laws of Baha'u'llah, those of which that are specific to this particular time right now, this age and this cycle, which pertain to the outward life of humankind at this time in its evolution. A little about Peter. So we, of course, welcome all of you to join our online talks every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Peter holds a BA in International Education, grades kindergarten through 8 from the University of Massachusetts. And he holds a master's degree in vocal performance from the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. He also started a PhD program at the University of Chicago in a Bachelor of Music program at Oberlin College. His areas of specialized knowledge include pedagogical theory and practice, Western classical music, and Jewish, Christian, Islamic, Baha'i, and Baha'i history and scripture. So he has published several books, and the list is very thick here, as you can see on our page in front of us. We welcome you to check out some of the references. I will just highlight one: Proofs of the Prophets, Companion to Proofs of the Prophets, Proofs of the Prophets, Lord Krishna, Proofs of the Prophets, The Case for Baha'u'llah, in his own words, in Autobiography of Baha'u'llah. So there's several pieces of literature he's written. You can find some of them on the Irfan Colloquia. If you go to irfancolloquia.org/publications, you can find it. You've also some access that you may have on BahaiTeachings.org, some articles that have been written. You can also go to academia.edu or Baha'i-library.com. You can find the literature that Peter Terry has produced. A lot of the items he's produced has been very unique. So he will be the person's perspective you'll be seeing on that matter, probably, because we still have many people left to investigate in the future. So we welcome you to please look at it. And with that being said, welcome, Peter. We're happy to have you. Thank you for joining us on short notice today.
You're welcome. Glad to be here. So, my friends, I start by saying that unfortunately, I'm going to have a short session with you today, because I'm being taken away at 12 o'clock, and I got started slowly, later than intended, because I had difficulty logging into Zoom. It's rectified, so it's working now, but it means that the time I have with you is cut by about a quarter, or maybe even half. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin to talk about this subject with you. And I'm going to highly recommend that everybody who's interested in this topic get a hold of the document, download it, read it. So that, because what I hope to do in the near future is to come back and talk about it a second time. This is a topic that is, it could be the subject of many talks, as a matter of fact. It's kind of interesting from the point of view of recognition, because there are probably not very many Baha'is who are really know very much about this topic and haven't really thought about it very much. And yet it's a topic for which there's a great deal of documentation in the Baha'i writings. Lots of references in Baha'u'llah's writings, lots in Abdu'l-Baha's writings and talks, and some very important ones in the letters of the Guardian. But so let's get started. I want to do this, give you the introduction at least, and then leave you some time so that you can ask questions. And I think it's very important that I read a few quotations from both Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l-Baha, and then also the Guardian, so that you understand the context here. Now, let me read the introduction. If you can scroll down just a little bit, because it's I'm not seeing it very well. Yes, that's good. So this is my introduction. The essential teachings of the religion of God are referred to in a number of passages of the Baha'i writings and utterances, many of which will be cited in this document. The document is constantly in the process of being added to. So, by the way, the next time you hear me talk about it, I'll have a lot more material collected. I'm in the process of collecting it at the moment. Now, the concept of the religion of God needs a few words of explanation. According to Baha'u'llah, there's only one religion of God. God communicates to us through manifestations of God, also called prophets and avatars and Buddhas and by lots of other names. And so this link of communication from God to human beings has been going on probably since we first appeared on planet Earth. For a very long time, we have no historical record of a time when we didn't have contact with the messenger of God. The contact begins with, in the case of all manifestations that have appeared after the first one, with the prophecies, because they all say something about what's going to, how to recognize the next manifestation when he appears. And so there's an expectation, there's a hope, there's a fervent desire to be around when he comes, or at least to be able to recognize his coming after he's taken his departure. So what this is a description of here is, what is this thing called the religion of God? It's composed of two kinds of teachings. We're not going to talk about the manifestation today. We're not going to talk about the people to whom the manifestation appears on earth. We're not going to talk about the languages of revelation. We're just going to talk about one topic, which is that there are two kinds of teachings that are revealed by the manifestation. One kind of teaching is what is called the essential teachings, or the perennial teachings. Those are the ones that don't change. From manifestation to manifestation, they are reiterated, rephrased sometimes. The wording may change, but the ideas are the same. And the second kind of teachings are what are called by Abdu'l-Baha the secondary teachings of the religion of God, which are those which are particular to a specific dispensation, that is, for a particular manifestation of God and a particular time and world situation, planetary and human situation, social context. So we're going to talk today about the essential teachings. Those are the ones that are the same each time a manifestation appears. And I here in the introduction, I say that this is a very rich topic. There's a great deal of information about it in the Baha'i writings and also in other scriptures. And so the study of this topic really requires multiple iterations, multiple perspectives, if you will. That's why I put down here, included in those perspectives is the two kinds of teachings of the religion of God, explaining what the two kinds of teachings are and going into quite a bit of depth about what distinguishes them from each other. Secondly, is to look at specifically the secondary teachings and go into depth. The third is the human teachings that have been added to all religions and in many cases have eclipsed the original divine teachings of that religion. So this is something that is stated not just in the Baha'i scriptures, but in all the scriptures, is that over time, there's a replacement process where human ideas replace the divine ideas that were brought by the manifestation. And this is identified very clearly in the Baha'i writings, how this has occurred in what specific ways. Another perspective on this will be to look at various historical scriptural references to the two kinds of teachings of religion. Because right now we're going to look at the Baha'i sources. We're not going to look at the sources in the Bible, in the Quran, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Zend-Avesta, and other scriptures. But it's actually very important for us to see those so that we understand that this is not just a Baha'i concept. This is a concept that has objective scientific evidence for its existence in every religion. Another perspective that we'll look at eventually is a correlation of the station of unity of the manifestation. In the Kitab-i-Igan of Baha'u'llah, he talks about there being two stations of the manifestation. One is the station of unity, where all of the manifestations are one. They are, in effect, one reality. And then there's another station, which is the station of differentiation, where they're all individuals. They all have specific teachings and specific personalities. So what we'll be looking at that from that perspective is the correlation between the station of unity of the manifestation and the covenant of God, because there are two covenants of each manifestation has two covenants. One is the covenant of God that's existed from the beginning, and the secondly is his covenant. And then the third correlation will be with the essential teachings of religion. And then finally will be a comparison of divine philosophy, which is a topic also that will be very fascinating for anybody interested in the Baha'i faith, but it's also not a topic that you hear much about. So I'm going to begin here by reading some selections that are going to demonstrate that this is an important teaching of the Baha'i scriptures. The first one is from the prologue to the Arabic hidden words of Baha'u'llah, revealed in 1858. This is that which hath descended from the realm of glory, uttered by the tongue of power and might, and revealed unto the prophets of old. we have taken the inner essence thereof and clothed it in the garment of brevity, as a token of grace unto the righteous, that they may stand faithful unto the covenant of God, may fulfill in their lives his trust, and in the realm of spirit obtain the gem of divine virtue. The hidden words, and there are 71 hidden words in Arabic and 82 in Persian. The hidden words are, all of them, essential teachings of the prophets of God. That's exactly what he says here. This is what was revealed to the prophets of old. These are eternal teachings of religion. And Baha'u'llah has given us this extraordinary collection of very brief descriptions of those teachings. It's not intended to be exhaustive. It doesn't include every essential teaching of the manifestations, not by a long shot, but it's a fantastic introduction. So this is actually should be homework for anybody who wants to understand this idea of the essential teachings, is go and read the hidden words, because they are essential teachings. So then after that quotation, I want to quote something else, which is there are two passages in the talks of Abdu'l-Baha, Baha'u'llah's eldest son, and appointed by him to be his mubayyin, his interpreter, and the one who clarifies his teachings. And Abdu'l-Baha gave at least two talks, two that we have been able to find and to publish, where he talks about the importance of the hidden words. I wanted to read those to you. This is a quotation directly from a talk that he gave on the 5th of May, 1912, when he was in the United States. Baha'u'llah has revoiced and reestablished the quintessence of the teachings of all the prophets, setting aside the accessories and purifying religion from human interpretation. He has written a book entitled The Hidden Words. The preface announces that it contains the essence of the words of the prophets of the past, clothed in the garment of brevity, for the teaching and spiritual guidance of the people of the world. Read it, that you may understand the true foundations of religion and reflect upon the inspiration of the messengers of God. Let's go and read the second one. The second one is a talk that he gave on the 2nd of December, 1912, also in America. My purpose is to explain to you that it is your duty to guard the religion of God, so that none shall be able to assail it outwardly or inwardly. If you find harmful teachings are being set forth by some individual, no matter who that individual be, even though he should be my own son, know verily that I am completely severed from him. If anyone speaks against the covenant, even though he should be my son, know that I am opposed to him. Those who speak falsehoods, who covet worldly things and seek to accumulate the riches of this earth, are not of me. But when you find a person living up to the teachings of Baha'u'llah, following the precepts of the hidden words, know that he belongs to Baha'u'llah. And verily I proclaim that he is of me. If, on the other hand, you see anyone whose deeds and conduct are contrary to and not in conformity with the good pleasure of the blessed perfection and against the spirit of the hidden words, let that be your standard and criterion of judgment against him. For know that I am altogether severed from him, no matter who he may be. This is the truth. You don't find much more emphatic statements by Abdu'l-Baha. And as you can tell from both of these talks, he is underscoring the tremendous importance of the hidden words. The hidden words is not meant to sit on a coffee table and gather dust. It's a book that we need to be reading regularly from, because the most important teachings of Baha'u'llah are contained in that book. And they are contained in such pungent, beautiful phrasing that we can memorize it, we can remember it, and even our children can learn those hidden words. So as I said, there's 71 individual hidden words in Arabic and 82 in Persian. I wanted to read just a few passages from the writings of Abdu'l-Baha, the other writings of Baha'u'llah, so that you would see that Baha'u'llah is talking about this theme of the essential teachings of religion throughout his life and his ministry. He starts with the hidden words in 1858. In 1862, he refers to it, to the essential teachings in the Kitab-i-Iqan. I'm going to read a couple of short passages here. In another sense, he's giving a commentary on the meaning of the symbolic terms found in Scripture. They're found in the Bible, both the Old and New Testament, and they're also found in the Quran. He says, in another sense, by the terms sun, moon, and stars are meant such laws and teachings as have been established and proclaimed in every dispensation, such as the laws of prayer and fasting. And the second quotation, the traditions establish, he's been citing traditions from the Prophet Muhammad. He says the traditions establish the fact that in all dispensations, the law of prayer hath constituted a fundamental element of the revelation of all the prophets of God. Isn't that interesting? He uses all twice to be very emphatic about this, very clear. And I want to read a couple of things also from the Kitab-i-Aqdas. Kitab-i-Aqdas is revealed in 1873. And the Kitab-i-Aqdas talks about the essential teachings of God. We tend to think of it as the book of Baha'u'llah's laws, but it also contains the laws of the prophets of God that have been re-revealed in every dispensation. Recite ye the verses of God every morn and eventide. Whoso faileth to recite them hath not been faithful to the covenant of God in his testament. And whoso turneth away from these holy verses in this day is of those who throughout eternity have turned away from God. So you see, this is definitely one of the essential teachings of God, that we have to read the verses from God in the morning and the evening. And in fact, that is found in all of the scriptures as well. And by the way, his reference to the covenant of God in his testament is talking about this greater covenant of all the manifestations with God, rather than the specific covenant of Baha'u'llah, which he didn't write for many years afterwards. The Kitab-i-Ad of Baha'u'llah was written around 1891. And whereas the Kitab-i-Aqdas was written in 1873. Here's another quotation that's even more transparent. This is the changeless faith of God, eternal in the past, eternal in the future. Let him that seeketh attain it. And as to him that hath refused to seek it, verily God is self-sufficient above any need of his creatures. I wanted to give you an example of one of the eternal teachings that Baha'u'llah is citing in the actual Kitab-i-Aqdas. And so I'm just going to read the portion of, this is a rather long note that's found in the notes that are appended to the Kitab-i-Aqdas. And these particular notes are responses to questions, most of them, and sometimes some of them are simply supplementary tablets that Baha'u'llah revealed. The fruits that best befit the tree of human life are trustworthiness and godliness, truthfulness and sincerity, but greater than all, if you'll scan a little bit up, after the recognition of the unity of God, praised and glorified be he, is regard for the rights that are due to one's parents. This teaching hath been mentioned in all the books of God and reaffirmed by the most exalted pen. The most exalted pen is another name for Baha'u'llah. So this is a very interesting thing, because if you've read the Old Testament, you know that the obligations we have to our parents are very serious, are talked about in very serious terms in the Old Testament. They're also mentioned in the New Testament. And here Baha'u'llah is saying they're mentioned by every manifestation because they are essential part of the message. So let's scroll down. I'm just going to read one of these passages. There are many passages. I tried to be as complete as possible, citing them. They're found in a number of talks that are in the Promulgation of Universal Peace. One is found in Paris Talks. One is found in Abdu'l-Baha and Divine Philosophy. And there are several here that are from Some Answered Questions. I'm going to read the one from Some Answered Questions, the first one, because it says essentially the same things as all the other texts. But I do want to say that I have found in reading all of these texts that my understanding is much, much better than just by reading one. I found that it simply works that way. You hear things differently because he's using different turns of phrase, different vocabulary, and somehow the meaning is that much more clear after it's being reiterated in several different ways. So this is from chapter 11 of Some Answered Questions. It is part of a very long commentary that Abdu'l-Baha wrote on the 11th chapter of the book of Revelation, the last book of the New Testament. The religion of God consists of two parts. One is the very foundation and belongs to the spiritual realm. That is, it pertains to spiritual virtues and divine qualities. This part suffers neither change nor alteration. It is the Holy of Holies. Here he's interpreting some verses from the book of Revelation. The Holy of Holies was, of course, the most sacred place in the temple, the temple in Jerusalem. It is the Holy of Holies which constitutes the essence of the religion of Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Christ, Muhammad, the Bab, and Baha'u'llah, and which will endure throughout all the prophetic dispensations. It will never be abrogated, for it consists in spiritual rather than material truths. It is faith, knowledge, certitude, justice, piety, high-mindedness, trustworthiness, love of God, and charity. It is mercy to the poor, assistance to the oppressed, generosity to the needy, and upliftment of the fallen. It is purity, detachment, humility, forbearance, patience, and constancy. These are divine qualities. These commandments will never be abrogated, but will remain in force and effect for all eternity. These human virtues are renewed in every dispensation, for at the close of each dispensation, the spiritual law of God, which consists in the human virtues, vanishes in substance and persists only in form. Now, he discusses that last sentence to some length in chapter 11, but I'll just say a word about it so you're not left with wondering what he meant by that. Vanishes in substance and persists only in form. What he's talking about is that towards the end of every dispensation, the people who believe in the manifestation of that dispensation and in his book have grown weary and have strayed to a lesser or greater degree from following the manifestation. And so that's what it means. The substance of the laws is no longer kept because the people don't really believe and act. And it persists only in form in that it's a ritual. It becomes something without spirit, without intention, without determination, and without love. And this happens, Abdu'l-Baha describes the 4 seasons of every religion. Every dispensation starts with spring, a huge flowering of life as it is in springtime with all kinds of beautiful things coming into existence. Then followed by summer when it becomes even more glorious. Then fall, it starts to go to sleep and the leaves fall and it reaches a certain kind of maturity and then it goes beyond that maturity. And then in winter, there's a season for every religion when it goes into hibernation. It goes where there's more death than life, where the spirit is actually departing from the religion. And it's no longer, there are no martyrs anymore. There are no great heroes and heroines of the faith anymore. And he says this happens with every dispensation. It's just a natural part of our spiritual life, just as the seasons are a part of our human life on the planet Earth. So I want to take you now and skip forward and leave you to read the other passages, which are all taken from talks of Abdu'l-Baha. Well, some of them are taken also from other chapters of some answered questions, but the other ones are taken from his talks. And they're beautiful. They're beautifully, every single one of them is worth the time to read, because everyone is unique. I said this once to someone. I think that the very core of the classical music practice in India, called the ragas. The very core of this is that they know a certain raga and then they improvise. And this is very similar to jazz here in Western culture. And in that sense, the master is a master improviser. Every single one of his statements of the essential teachings of the religion of God is unique. It has similarities, but the wording is different. And it's so wonderful to read each one because it reinforces and enriches our understanding each time. So if you keep going down, you will find Shoghi Effendi. Yes, you have to go quite a while because there are so many quotations. Yes, here we go. So Shoghi Effendi, as you're probably aware, Shoghi Effendi wrote a great number of letters, and his secretaries wrote a great number of letters. And the most important of those letters are the ones that he wrote for communities and we're very fortunate in the United States and Canada because we received a number of those letters from the Guardian over the years, from the 1930s all the way through into the 1950s. And what he would call the general letters, they were always published in Baha'i News so that everybody could get them when they first came out. They were also published in collections by the publishing trusts so that they could study them. And study them they did. All of those letters were the subject of study, not only in community deepenings, but also in summer schools. And they were considered really required reading. When a new volume of those letters would come out, the Baha'is would get to work, get to work reading. And I understand that this is also a kind of a specialized blessing for those who read English, because many of those letters have not been translated well into other languages and have not been kept in print in other languages. So those people who read in the English language wherever they live in the world are very, very blessed to be able to read these letters from the Guardian. So I'm going to cite some passages from those letters, starting with a very early one in June of 1933 and going on through a wider time frame, where he touches upon this concept of the essential teachings. And again, like Abdu'l-Baha, he uses a variety of words to talk about them. So I'll start with the first one, which was included in a letter to the High Commissioner for Palestine in June of 1933. This was at request from the British government, the British imperial government, which wanted to have a description from the head of the faith of what is the Baha'i faith. The revelation proclaimed by Baha'u'llah, and I've taken out part of the paragraph, so that's why I had to stick a verb in there. And the reason why I didn't do the whole thing is because I want you to be able to focus on what he says about the essential teachings of religion, because he talks about many other characteristics of the revelation proclaimed by Baha'u'llah, and not just this one. Proclaimed by Baha'u'llah affirms that the founders of all past religions, though differing in the non-essential aspects of their teachings, abide in the same tabernacle, soar in the same heaven, are seated upon the same throne, utter the same speech, and proclaim the same faith. That is a quote from Baha'u'llah. That's 1933. If you scroll down a little bit to the next one was in 1934. It was included in what the Guardian's wife said was the most important letter written by Shoghi Effendi. That's the dispensation of Baha'u'llah. Because in the dispensation of Baha'u'llah, he was correcting the misunderstandings that many Baha'is had about important teachings of the faith. And by quoting extensively from Abdu'l-Baha and Baha'u'llah, but also revealing his own extraordinary insights and wisdom by virtue of the ministry that had been given to him. He was appointed as the first guardian, and he carried that out with such extraordinary wisdom and knowledge. And not only that, but artistry. It's quite extraordinary when you read Shoghi Effendi to consider this was not his first language. It wasn't his second language. It wasn't even his third language. English was his fourth language. He learned Persian from the time he was born. He learned Arabic, not just because he was reading the Babi and Baha'i writings, but because so many of the people living in Akka and Haifa were speaking Arabic. Many, many Arabs living there, and many Muslims. So he was speaking Arabic and reading Arabic and learning Arabic. And then he was going to school, and he went to school much of the time in a Catholic school that was run by priests who spoke French. So he learned French, became completely fluent in French. So the fourth language he learned was English. And his English is so extraordinarily fluent that you feel as if you are in a position, I as a native speaker of English, I feel as if every time I read his prose that I'm learning something really important about how to communicate in the English language. Nor does the Baha'i revelation, claiming as it does to be the culmination of a prophetic cycle and the fulfillment of the promise of all ages, attempt under any circumstances to invalidate those first and everlasting principles that animate and underlie the religions that have preceded it. Essential teachings of religion. Its teachings do not deviate a hairbreadth from the verities they enshrine, far from aiming at the overthrow of the spiritual foundation of the world's religious systems. Its avowed, its unalterable purpose is to restate their fundamentals, to demonstrate their oneness, to restore the pristine purity of their teachings. In 1941, he wrote, "The faith standing identified with the name of Baha'u'llah disclaims any intention to belittle any of the prophets gone before him, to whittle down any of their teachings, to obscure, however slightly, the radiance of their revelations, to oust them from the hearts of their followers, to abrogate the fundamentals of their doctrines, to discard any of their revealed books. He insists on the unqualified recognition of the unity of their purpose, restates the eternal verities they enshrine, distinguishes the essential and the authentic from the non-essential and spurious in their teachings, and on this as a basis proclaims the possibility and even prophesies the inevitability of their unification." Let's read one more. The fundamental principle enunciated by Baha'u'llah, followers of his faith firmly believe, is that all the great religions of the world, on the world, are divine in origin, that their basic principles are in complete harmony, that their aims and purposes are one and the same, that their teachings are but facets of one truth, that they differ only in the non-essential aspects of their doctrines. His purpose, far from belittling the station of the prophets gone before him, or of whittling down their teachings, is to restate the basic truths which these teachings enshrine. So I think you clearly understand now, having heard from Baha'u'llah, Abdu'l-Baha, and the Guardian on this subject, how important it is. How important it is to Baha'is, and how important it is for our communication with other people of faith, be they Christians, Buddhists, Muslims, or of any other faith. So rather than because time is short, I wanted to ask if there are any questions, and I wanted to also ask that Jeremiah let you all know how to get a copy of this document so that you'd be able to read it. And I'm sure that at some point in the next few months, we'll schedule another session where we can talk about it. We can do not so much a presentation as really a seminar. If we can get enough people to read it, we'll have a seminar and we'll talk about the meaning of this teaching. So if we have a few minutes, any comments you'd like to make?
So now would be a good time if anyone had any questions to go ahead and pose them. You should be able to unmute yourselves directly and ask them.
Hey guys, and I'm sorry I joined a little bit late, but so I missed the introduction. And what document specifically are you addressing? I've been hearing these quotes in the last few minutes, but you're mentioning a document. So if you could just refresh, and I apologize, it's because I'm coming late to the show here.
Yes, well, Jeremiah, if you will tell people where to find this document, or if you want, you can put it in the chat, so that or I think you already did it. There you go.
Thanks. And is this a compilation of existing writings, just organized, or what is the essential nature of the document?
That's what it is, but it's also I went several steps beyond that. I didn't just collect texts. I actually did some analysis of looking at what are the essential teachings, and it began to look at where are they found, and look through two large collections of Baha'u'llah's writings to find them, and gave each one a number so that it was possible to compare what was in one particular book and what was in another one. So you will see at the end of this current compilation, which is mostly composed of quotations arranged chronologically, starting with Baha'u'llah, going to Abdu'l-Baha, and then the Guardian, is that there are lists of the actual essential teachings that are described by Baha'u'llah and that are described by Abdu'l-Baha. Yeah, there's one of the lists. So the list is just a beginning, because it doesn't include descriptions of what those words mean in the context in which they're used. So it's the beginning of a study, but because it gives page numbers, it's possible for a person looking at the list to actually look things up for themselves. Now, I'm going to have to fly, as I told people in the beginning, because I have to attend to something at 12, and it's now 12:03, and I have tiny wiggle room, but I want to encourage you to dive deeply into this document, and Jeremiah, we can talk about when to schedule another session, maybe a month or two from now, so that people have time to really read it. Yeah. I know you're all busy people.
I'll look at the schedule, and we can definitely have you back for that. So I just want to say thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. And so I wish everyone a wonderful Easter, and to just have a great rest of your weekend. And we can go ahead and conclude, unless, John, you have anything you want to say?
Yes, just one more thing. It's www.clearwaterbaha'is.org. Go to the tab Activities and Events, and you can register for our next event for the 11 a.m. Sunday session. Thank you.
Okay, have a wonderful rest of your day, and hope to talk to you very soon.